right and we're looking good. You'll be in for a fight and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Brunton Bugle, the best place to get your Carlisle United fix in the podcast world. I'm Lee Rooney.
And I'm Dan McLennan.
On this special episode, we're going to be discussing the sacking of manager Chris Beech after just 2 years in charge, looking at where it went wrong, some of the high points of his time in charge, and we'll have a look at some of the early names being put forward to take on the hot seat at Brunton Park. Well, we did say, Dan, didn't we? We did say that this was potentially the game where one of the managers, whoever lost, could get their P45, and unfortunately, it's proved to be right, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think if we'd kept it to 1-0, he might have got next week as well.
I think you're absolutely right. I think he might have been given a bit of time, but that capitulation in the last 10 minutes or so, just having that put paid to it. The way the third goal went in as well, it was just, we just looked at shambles, and you just got the impression at that point, like, he doesn't know what he's doing anymore, or the players really aren't playing for him.
It looked as though he's run out of ideas, and that, you know, as he lost the dressing room. It was quite interesting. Radio Cumbria played a clip of Joy Barton prior to the match, and I know a few people sort of took the piss out of this a little bit. You know, he said he went to church and he did all this and that, and then Jaboy Bire was the co-com, and I think it was James Phillips sort of said to him, you know, which set of comments would inspire you, and he basically said that Barton's would, you know, it'd be like you'd want to play for that, you know.
I get the impression Barton, look, he's a combative character, isn't he? But I think he'd probably get a lot of some players. I think he'd be able to push the right buttons with some people, I think. Whereas with Beech,
definitely.
I don't know, when you hear his interviews, you're always a bit like, there's a lot of buzzwords, a lot of, you know, David Brent-esque talk, isn't there? It was a bit of an odd one. So yeah, after 23 months in charge, Chris Beech's time as manager of Carlisle United has come to an end this weekend after the Blues capitulated to a 3-0 defeat against fellow strugglers Bristol Rovers. Having arrived as the sort of shock appointment, I think it's fair to say, Dan, isn't it? Back in November 2019, he's faced more than his fair share of challenges in his time as boss and gave us some real high points last season, but the second half of season collapse early this year, and the failure to even get out of first gear this season sort of inevitably meant that after Saturday's game there was nowhere else to go, really, was there?
No. I mean, we say get out of first gear. We've won 2 in 11. We won at Swindon early, but they'd literally just been took over that week, hadn't they?
They were just getting themselves together, weren't they?
You look at it now, would we win at Swindon if we played them next week? I don't think so. God no. I mean, the Salford game as well. You look at Salford, they're struggling a bit this season. That was one of those ones where we dug in a little bit, and then I mean, bar that, you've got the Scunthorpe game. You think that's a game you should be beating them. I mean, look at the weekend. Ridiculous. We will cover the Bristol Rovers game in depth later in the week for the Tranmere Rovers preview episode. That'll be me and Mike on that one. But today, me and Dan are going to look back at Beech's time as boss, where it went wrong, some of the positives and highlights of his time in charge, and basically have a sort of quick discussion about what the club needs to do next in terms of who gets the job after Beech. So without any further ado, Dan, let's look back at where it went wrong. I mean, it was all going so well last season, wasn't it? Up to New Year's Day, you know, we had some fantastic results, fantastic performances, and then, yes, the issues started, didn't they? I mean, the first obvious one to pick on is the COVID break and the postponements, wasn't it, really? That's where it first started. Yeah. I mean, it's not, you know, you can't really blame anyone for that, you know. The country was in a mess. We weren't the only club who had games called off, but ours seemed to coincide with, you know, the shambles at Harrogate a couple of times. We had a home game called off for weather, which, you know, hasn't happened for a few seasons. Yeah. And it was just an enforced period of inactivity, wasn't it? You know, the struggle to find training facilities.
Yeah, all those things sort of came together, didn't they? I mean, COVID-19 actually hitting the squad, I think that's probably something we maybe underestimated a little bit at the time, didn't we? I think as well as we know not all players were that badly affected, so we've got to be fair there. But there was a few who took a long while to recover, didn't they, from the effects of it? And the postponement, I think that's the key one. When you look back at it, I mean, this season, how many Tuesday night games have we got? Is it 5 scheduled
5 or
in?
6, yeah.
5 or 6. We already had 11 scheduled in last season, didn't we? Because of the compacted season.
Yeah, yeah.
We had 12 weeks in a row of Saturday Tuesdays.
Yeah.
It's astonishing when you look back at it, actually, how we actually coped throughout the whole thing. And all that momentum's a big thing in football, isn't it? And we definitely lost a lot of that as a result of those games being called off. And that had a big impact on us. And as much as anything, that time off, actually, you do wonder, did that give teams a bit of time to work out how we played?
I don't think it was too hard to work out how we played, really.
No.
You know, it was fairly obvious what our tactic is, but again, you talk about momentum. When you're doing well, you know, you come back and, you know, when you're doing well, you can get away with playing the same tactic because teams already have that slight fear factor when they come to Brunton Park. You know, I'm just looking at the results for last season. We came back at the end of January. We beat Exeter 1-0. It was a scrappy game from memory, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then we got beat off Forest Green on the Tuesday night. And then we had another fortnight off, didn't we?
Yeah, well, the Cheltenham game, wasn't it, was called? I think it was, yeah.
And then we lost Leyton Orient and Crawley to the weather, didn't we?
Yes, I think it was.
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, Leyton Orient for the third time, I think it was, wasn't it? Or something like second time, possibly.
And then you look at the results when we came back. In the first 7 games back, we lost 5 and drew 2. You know, we just everything had gone. You know, we'd slipped down the table without playing, and then the bad run of results. And you know, we did pick up a little bit. You know, towards the end of the season, but we were always out of the picture then. You know, the number of games we drew at the end of the season was ridiculous.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing. We said we picked up some form, but I mean, to be honest, the games we won were generally against poor teams, weren't they? I mean, Scunthorpe's an obvious one. Crawley, I mean, anyone could beat them on the day when they're playing like they are. Southend, I mean, that was a gimme, you know, couldn't have been more of a gimme. I mean, Bradford as well were not good last season, to be fair, and they picked up a bit at that point. But some of the results that stand out when you look at it, I mean, I'm looking at this list here as well. The first game back after that extra delay, the Harrogate game, 1-0, we barely turned up that evening. It was poor. It was not a great performance. Salford next game, we put a bit of battling effort in, but then we had that run of 4 defeats in a row, and Tranmere, bit of a ding-dong end-to-end game. Tranmere were up there with us as well, so you can almost look at that or whatever, but the next two really stand out, don't they? I mean, losing 3-1 at home against Oldham, who, you know, Bambula aside, not a great side.
No.
Then to go to Colchester and lose 2-1, the famous night of the penalties.
Yeah.
I mean, when he started using that as an excuse and wouldn't shut up about it for about 3 or 4 weeks, I mean, that's the point when I started to think, does he know actually what he's doing here?
Yeah, yeah.
You almost
but you were also prepared to give him a little bit of benefit of doubt.
Yeah.
Because of the whole COVID and postponement thing.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at that first half of the season, actually, I'm looking at the results there again. We were almost a little bit flat track bullies at times, weren't we? When you look at it. Because when we played Exeter, Cheltenham, and Tranmere, we lost to all, and Forest Green, we lost to all 4 of them. We were battering a lot of teams. We were battering Stevenage, we beat Bradford. Salford's the only one really you look at from a big team we beat.
I think this is something we mentioned in the end of season reviews as well, that our record against those that finished above us was absolutely atrocious.
Yeah.
You know, in about 18 games, I think we won 2 or 3 of them, wasn't it? And you know, it sort of showed that we just, despite everything that had went on, were we really good enough to go up?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to look at the bigger picture sometimes, rather than looking at that purple patch of form and up to that Walsall game where we were excellent at that point. But after that Exeter game, that's when things just went to pot then, didn't they? Really, I mean, you look at it, we won 1 in about 12, was it? I think, or something like that. I mean, that got John Ward the sack when he was manager. If we went back that far, Beech has been given quite a lot of leeway over the last year or two, and I think it just caught up with him in the end, didn't it? And if we look at this season then, Dan, summer transfer activity and the contract renewals, both departures and arrivals, you've got to look at that, haven't you, as well? I mean, that's not all just on Beech, though, is it? We've got to admit that some of that has got to be on on Holdsworth as well. We will touch on in a bit, I'm sure. End of season, the contract renewal work wasn't great. I mean, you picked up on this at the time, didn't you? That this is an ongoing issue, that we really struggle to get players to sign new contracts unless they've got a trigger clause in their contract.
Yeah.
We've managed to do it with Guy and Mellish now, but I'm sure they've been very well rewarded with their new contracts for next season. But when you look at it in terms of offering deals at the end of the season, we just couldn't convince players to stay, could we?
No. I mean, I know a lot was made of Farman and Zanzala, but from speaking to a couple of people who were a little bit in the know down at Barrow, the sums they were offered, I mean, Bradford couldn't sign Zanzala.
Well, Bradford said they didn't really want him, and then did they? Haven't they?
Yeah, I think that was just talk. But
yeah.
I think if we could have signed him, they would have, sort of thing, you know.
I think I have a feeling Bradford got played a little bit by Zanzala's agent there.
Possibly, yeah.
There was interest from Sunderland apparently in him, and then Sunderland went cold, and I think they used Sunderland and Bradford against Barrow to get a better deal from them.
But apparently, you know, the wages those two are on are considerably more than they were.
But didn't Farman basically admit in some of his interviews he's done since signing for Barrow that basically Carlisle only offered him a 1-year deal, and that was one of the big thing that convinced him to look elsewhere. You might have found you've offered him a 2-year deal on, you know, slight increase in wage, or maybe even the same wage with better bonuses or something. You might have stayed. You might have said, "Yeah, I'm happy with that. I'm playing football. I'm in a good team. The team. I'm
close
a vital
to home.
Yeah, close to home. I'm a vital part of the team as well." That's the thing, the way he would have looked at it.
Yeah, yeah.
But as it is, he's gone to Barrow, and he's doing pretty well there, isn't he? So far, when you look at it, and we've really struggled in that department so far this season. But yeah, and we'll cover this maybe a little bit more as well later. But losing Coyote as well, and the more you look at it, the more you actually sit there. I know it's hindsight, but you sit there and have a look at it. You think to yourself, actually, we really, really missed him by the end, didn't we? Him going actually made a big difference to the way we played was so centred around him. We just weren't the same side without him, were we?
Yeah, and you know, I know he's signed his new contract in Rotherham and that, but he's hardly played this season,
One of those things you look and think, if we could have got him back on loan this season, I think actually we'd probably be comfortably mid-table at least, and maybe a bit higher up. And we'll touch on how important he was actually to the team and how much Beech actually missed him in a while. But yes, obviously losing all those players. I mean, Anderton going, obviously we said we weren't that bothered about it at the time, but with hindsight, Armour's had a tough season. We probably could have done with Anderton being able to come in a little bit, because he's still a young lad, Armour, and Anderton could have come in for a couple of games over the last few weeks and maybe made us a little bit more solid. Left back, he looked all right when he came on the weekend for Bristol Rovers. Patrick going to a higher level, that's one you just say hands up. You know, he's taking a chance there. Good luck to the lad. One of those ones, isn't it? Although again, we could have, by all accounts, we could have triggered a deal with him. We decided not to. So very, very unusual, that one. And the Reece Bennett affair, I mean, that was just a bit of a shambles from start to finish, wasn't it? So there you go. I mean, he also lost Tanner and Hayden in the summer transfer window, didn't he? They're ones where that's going to happen. To lose two of them, though, who were basically key members of your defence last season, you essentially, your whole defence of last season has been decimated.
Yeah.
And that's not easy. That's not easy, because it goes a little bit underrated how good our defence was at times last season, actually. I know you look for the scores, we had a lot of clean sheets at times, the highest number of clean sheets since in the days of Westwood, wasn't it, really? That's how good we were in terms of defence. So, yeah, not great to lose all them. And in terms of coming in this summer, it's... I've heard a lot of people say, sort of putting a bit of blame on Holdsworth here. Maybe you can, but at the same time, you get a player like Zach Clough in. That's not a case of Holdsworth picking up someone at the last minute there. You're scraping to find a contact to bring a player in. He's your main target. And we haven't seemed to have had a clue how to actually fit him into this team, do we?
Yeah, and he was picked up early as well. You know, Abraham's, Clough and Whelan were all signed by the 1st of July.
Yeah.
Then it went quiet.
Yeah.
You know, the only other one we picked up before the start of the season then was Mampala on a permanent, and obviously Jensen on loan.
Yeah. That's that you look at that and you think, and then when you actually compare it against what he had last season, They're not as strong. It isn't.
We've obviously missed out on some targets, and whenever you have a target, you always have a backup option, don't you?
I mean, Greg Abbott always had that. He always said that, didn't he? We have to go for number 3 quite often on our list. But
I think we've missed out on 1, 2, and 3 in 2 or 3 cases.
Yeah, definitely. And is it we're going back to being a bit tighter on the wage, having been a bit more expressive last summer? I don't know. It's a hard one to tell, and it's like I said, it's the fact that he just didn't seem to know how to fit Clough into the team. He signed this clearly talented player, but he's trying to play him in the style we played last season, and without someone like Coyote playing up front as target man, that's going to be a tough ask.
Yeah.
Clough would have fitted in perfectly as the sort of central striker probably in a team last season, because Coyote goes out wide, wins the flick-ons, and Clough's there to pick up pieces, you'd think.
Yeah, well, he would have played the Alessandro role, wouldn't he?
Yeah, he would have played a lot of that. And I think Alessandro, his form dropping off this season as well has been quite noticeable. We said that on the weekend, didn't we? It's noticeable he's not been quite as good this year. I mean, defensively, we look so much weaker than last season, don't we? Both in goalkeeper department and defenders. I mean, I know that
we have a different lineup every week at the moment, which doesn't help either.
Yeah. I mean, Holdsworth mentioning about the whole, didn't say I use my contacts about. It's like, it couldn't be much clearer that the poor lad was about 6th choice when we desperately needed another centre back in there to back up the defence, and we're picking up a lad who's never played a first team game before in his life at the age of 21 or something like that, isn't it? It's that's a little bit frightening, wasn't it? It's despite what Holdsworth says, that is not a stronger squad than it was last season, undeniably. But that doesn't mean the manager can't adapt to what he's got, and that comes into the next point of tactics, doesn't it? We were very direct last season, no doubt about that, but it was exciting to watch. First half of the season was enjoyable to watch because we were creating a lot of chances.
As I mentioned a couple of times previously, we won the league in 94-95 under Mick Wadsworth playing direct football.
Yeah.
When it works, you don't mind.
Yeah. These ideas that we played some sort of silky, smooth style passing football in that team. We played better football under Mervyn Day.
Yeah, 2
than
years.
we did against Holdsworth.
I always say I think 96-97 would probably beat 94-95, even though they never won the league.
Big Stefan at the back, of course they would.
Yeah.
But no, in all seriousness, you're right. And we played a lot of direct football. We relied a lot on Reeves running the channels and getting onto long balls, and Curry being able to pick players out with long balls like Thomas and Reeves, and that made a big difference to us. And I know there was a gathering of them, wasn't there, last night at the Caribbean Catholic Club to celebrate the 25+1 anniversary of all that. And you do look at it, you think brilliantly talented players, but we did play direct football, and there's nothing wrong with it. If it works, and it can be exciting, and that season was exciting.
Yeah.
When you look at the games, and it was enjoyable to watch that first half of the season. We basically, when we were against teams, we turned the screw, didn't we? When we see the weakness on them, we'd have a go at them. And obviously against the better teams, it was a bit tougher to do that because they had decent game plans against us generally. But I guess, like I mentioned before, I think by the time we came back after our enforced break in January and February, teams had worked us out a little bit more. I know you say it's obvious how we played, but I think they'd come up with game plans to deal with us, a lot of them.
Yeah, there was. I remember there was a couple of games where when you watched it and you thought, they've watched us, haven't they?
Yeah, definitely. As I said before as well, Coyote, he's so key to that. I mean, not just in terms of him winning flick-on stuff, but he won free kicks, he'd hold the ball up. Defending set pieces, he was vile in that. Fox Analytics has covered that in a blog, and it's absolutely
it does make you wonder why we didn't go out for a target man this summer.
That's the thing that puzzled me. That really does puzzle me.
We were talking about yesterday on our WhatsApp about Jamie Proctor, how well he's playing this season.
Yeah,
a lot of Carlisle fans think he was rubbish when he was here. He had a knock when he was here. He wasn't fully fit. He still scored 4 and assisted another 3 or 4.
Yeah, he was a target man, wasn't he?
Add that up over a season, you're probably talking 10 goals and 10 assists from a fully fit player,
Yeah, which is pretty much what Coyote got.
Yeah.
When you look at it, really. And he's got a bit more now, so he's a bit older, Proctor, so you think he'd do a bit better. But yes, I just think Coyote, not replacing him is the big issue as much as anything, because he was a massive player to us last season in both boxes. And I think also losing Hayden and Bennett in terms of their effect on set pieces at both ends as well made a huge difference. When we watch some of the long throws we're taking now, nothing's coming of it. I know we've lost Coyote's throw, but we've also lost Hayden and Bennett in there, causing a bit of chaos as well. And McDonald's the only one really that's sort of doing anything really.
we get a corner and we just don't look as though we're going to score, do we?
Yeah. You don't really want Mellish to be the one going for the flick on stuff. You want him to be in there trying to get on it and actually get the final touch, don't you? Because that's what he's good at.
Just causing uproar, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. And Abraham's coming in as well. I'm not sure what kind of player he is yet. I don't think he's a bad footballer, but he's not one who spends a lot of time pressing players and trying to win the ball back. He's not a target man in any way, shape or form, really. He doesn't win a massive lot of headers. He's not overly pacey. How he fits into the team, I'm not 100% sure at the moment. I'm not sure whether Beech knew that either. It's one of those ones I wonder if he's looked and think, he's played at a high level before. He can do it at this level. Let's get him in. Rather than actually having a plan for him. Similar in the way with Clough, really, isn't it? This season...
They're both on 2-year deals from memory, aren't they?
Yeah, Clough and Abrams are, so
yeah.
Whoever comes in, going to have to use them. We just don't have the personnel to play this, and I think Beech has only clicked on in recent games that this is the case, isn't it? Because against Forest Green Rovers, apparently we played our lowest number of long passes in, and I'm sure it was something like 2 years, something like that. I'm sure that Fox Analytics said. And we did play, you could tell we were trying to play a bit of football, and again, at the weekend, in the first 20 minutes against Bristol Rovers, it was the same. We tried to play football.
But is Forest Green the team to make that change against?
No, to be honest, the more you look at it, it's probably one of those ones where we should have just sat in, soaked up the pressure a bit and tried to hit them quickly on the break with long balls, really. That would have been the ideal way to play that one, but there you go. So, some of the sort of key things. Is there anything else you can think of, Dan, as to where it went wrong, really?
Lack of plan B.
Yeah, a lack of plan B. And
the substitutions, they were always mainly like for like.
I remember reading an interview somewhere from a wizened old manager, I can't remember who it was, and they said one of the most difficult things to actually pick up and learn as a manager, you can't learn this from doing your coaching courses, is when to make subs and when to do them right. Yeah. It's a really tough one because it takes you a while to sort of get to grips with it. Beech has been a coach as well, an assistant coach for years, and he might look and think, I've put suggestions forward to managers, we need to get this lad on, I'll sub him off, and they've ignored me in the past. So maybe he's thinking, maybe that's why they did that. It's something like that. You do wonder, don't you? It's not great. And the other thing that it's things like as well that he's always had a very positive outlook to everything. He's never been one to call out players, has he? He's never been one to. He's always been focused on the positives, and sometimes you've got to front up to when things aren't great. That comment he came out with the other week, was it, saying we're very close to being a very good team. We're third bottom in the football league right now. Yeah. You can't say that. Whether you think that privately, whatever, but you can't say that as manager.
And we can sort of be glad that Oldham are a basket case and Scunthorpe are just shit.
Yeah. We're incredibly lucky there. But that said, Oldham are only 2 points behind us. Yeah. And for all his flaws, Keith Curl can get a team fairly well organised, and I would not be amazed if they managed to grub themselves a little bit away from trouble. And that would worry me. I think Scunthorpe are dead and buried already. I think they just look awful. They must look at that point against us and think that's one of the best things we've done in ages. But
on the flip side of that, they were probably gutted and never got all three.
Yeah. You'd probably look at that, and that's probably why they're down at the bottom. Really.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. In terms of the stats, Dan, I've got some stats here for you. So 88 games in charge, according to Transfermarkt and Soccerbase. I've checked them both. 28 of those won, 28 drew, and 32 defeats. His win percentage, 31.8%. And how does that compare to Stephen Presley when he was sacked?
Presley was 34.1%.
Which is considerably more, actually, when you look at it now.
Yeah.
Presley was in charge for just less than half that number of games. But
I think Presley lost a bigger percentage.
Beech
had quite a lot more draws.
Yeah.
But we didn't score many. We should have looked up how many goals we scored under both, because we haven't scored many under Chris Beech.
No, we have had purple patches where we have, and then we have long patches where we don't.
This season we scored 9 in 11 games,
and it does feel to me like we've had quite a few 0-0s under him. I'm sure we've had a long period where we haven't had 0-0s, and I'm sure we've had about 4 or 5 under Beech as well, which is not great.
Come on, get your favourite stat out. It was on the radio yesterday.
My favourite stat, I got it on the radio yesterday. So during Beech's time in charge, we've gone behind in 35 games. From those matches, we recovered just 11 points. and only once have we won from memory, and that was later on in last season. In
So
what was
one win and 8 draws.
Essentially, yeah. And to be honest, that later on one was just a mental game, wasn't it?
Yeah,
end to end of season. Nothing riding on it. Both teams just doing very odd stuff. In comparison, Harrogate this season have got 8 points already from positions where they've been behind in games. It's it's not great. Not great. No. And that if you can't get yourself into a habit of getting back into games, then deep down back in your head, as soon as you go behind, you think best we can get here probably is a point, and even that's going to be a struggle. And that really started to show towards the end, didn't it?
Yeah.
Fox Analytics FC on Twitter. If you don't follow them already, we talked about them before. They put some really interesting stuff up. I asked him a few weeks ago, didn't I, about how do we compare in terms of long balls forward and actually winning those long balls, and to last season. I mean, when you look at it in terms of, I've got the stat here. So we are one of the teams that plays the most percentage of long balls, but we've got the second lowest aerial duel win percentage this season. And I'm sure we were top last season on both those stats, weren't we?
Yeah.
Because Coyote was winning.
We were certainly up there, weren't we?
Coyote was the highest rated forward in terms of winning aerial duels in the division last season. I keep bringing it up, but again, it goes to him leaving. And we were critical of Coyote this season because we thought he could be an even better player than he was. He was doing a lot of the basic stuff really well, but he wasn't really taking chances in terms of scoring goals. That was one of the biggest problems with him. We were the best side for pressing last season, and we're still quite good now. 6th best in the division. But the number of shots we're actually getting as a result has dropped from being the best in the division to being 14th.
Yeah.
That's telling us. So we're winning the ball back and we're not actually doing anything with it.
What we'll also do, when we put this out in the morning, it'll be out. It'll be from Monday morning. You listen to this. We'll put a couple of links up to some of these articles from Fox that we've discussed, because they are a good read.
There's a really good one he's done about in terms of defending corners compared to last season, and we're not actually doing much different. The problem is the personnel in there aren't capable of doing it in the same way. We had Bennett and Hayden, and Coyote was vital to defending set pieces last season when you look at it. Really, really was. We've talked about a lot of negatives there, Dan, so I think we should probably try and focus on a few of the positives of his reign, because it's not all been doom and gloom. Obviously, we look at the last 7 or 8 months, it has. But if we look at what he's done good, I mean, this was always a bugbear of ours, wasn't it, when Keith Curle was boss, that he had absolutely no interest in the youth side of the team, did he? I mean, you know this for a fact from speaking to people, that he wouldn't even go watch somebody.
No.
Zero interest. He made a few comments to players at games as well about them not getting in the team, which was bang out of order, to be honest, from what we heard. He's actually shown some faith in it, Beech, hasn't he? I know that's basically been, what the club has said they want from him, and that he's had to do it in a sense, but he's given those players a chance. Not maybe as many as some would have hoped, but you've got to understand it's his job on the line, isn't it? He's not just going to throw a load of kids in for the sake of it. He's there to win games, so he picks a team he thinks will win games rather than just putting the kids in there. But he's given them games, a lot more games than Curl ever did in his 5 years in charge.
Yeah, but I'm slightly against that. There seemed to be a bit of taking the credit for the whole Brandthwaite thing.
Yeah.
Stephen Presley takes the credit for that for me.
Well, he's the one who spotted straight away. I think he played a reserve or youth game, didn't he? And said, get that lad signed on a longer contract.
Yeah.
And the club did it. So he definitely deserves a bit of credit for that. I mean, if you actually look at it, I'm looking here.
We wrapped the lad up in cotton wool for this last month for you in case his move fell apart, didn't we? He didn't play. I
mean, I know you're funny, but he only potentially coached him for 6 games. I'm looking at this.
Yeah.
And actually, I think some of those he didn't play in.
Yeah, like I say, he was wrapped up in cotton wool.
I'm sure he missed a couple of them. So, yeah, it's one of those ones. Maybe he doesn't deserve as much credit there. But to be fair, he's done well with our young players and he's given Charters a few chances. Again, we might have wanted more, but with the midfield three doing so well, it was difficult for him to get games. Similar with Dixon, Lewis Bell's coming for the odd game here and there as well, and yeah, he's done a lot better than other managers, hasn't he? Basically, so he does deserve a bit of a pat on the back for that. The style of play last season, it was exciting to watch. Genuinely, I mean, you think back to like that time when all the lockdowns, you couldn't go to games. one of the things that would give you a lift at the weekend was watching us play, wasn't it? On the
Yeah,
iPhone.
definitely.
Seeing us score goals and look like we were going to bat. I mean, I think back to that, I think it was against Crawley away, wasn't it? I think we beat them 3-0. And we were terrific in that game. We really were. And that's one of those ones where you thought, yeah, we've really got a chance here this season. And then when we were allowed to go to games as well, we had that run of like 4 home games in a row that we got to go to, didn't we, in December? The Stevenage one always stands out to me because we just basically, we recognised straight away that they were a side that was lacking confidence, not playing good football, struggling. And we just went for the neck, didn't we? And we was like, yeah, we're not just going to beat these, we're going to crush them basically in this match.
Yeah.
And again, it's one of those unlucky ones there as well for Beech, in that Tanner got injured in that game in injury time for a nothing challenge, really, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And he missed that bit. I know Armour came and did okay at right back, but you would have preferred Tanner to have been fit for the whole time, wouldn't you? So yeah. And actually, I think as well, quality of the squad is left behind. I mean, this is not a criticism of Presley in a way, because he's resource-wise, his hands are a bit more tired than Beech's ever were. I think we've got a better squad than we had back then. I think there's areas that are weak.
I'm going to not disagree, but I'm just pulled up who Presley signed in his one summer here. Christy Elliott didn't work, but he's now playing Scottish Premiership. Jack Iredale took a bit of settling in, but he's playing in League One now. Harry McCurdy, like him or loathe him, is a talented footballer. And at the moment, he's on fire for Swindon. He signed John Mellish. He signed Aaron Hayden. Yes, I know they improved more with Beech, who's maybe more of a coach. But, you know, Presley did sign some good players. Geffin Jones was a real pickup.
Come on, you got to mention some of the bad ones as well. Kenise Carroll.
Yeah.
Elias Sorensen, I know that was one of the last minute thing, but no, I'm not criticising Presley in any way. I'm just saying that I feel that the squad is in a better place now for anyone who comes in. There are weaknesses in there, though. We can't hide from the fact that defensively we look like we need a good centre back in there. We really do need someone who's going to grab them by the neck and say, we almost need a Kevin Gray type in there just to say to them, sort yourselves out. You're going to be playing non-league football soon.
Yeah.
Something like that, don't we? And we probably need a target man as well. They're the 2 key things I'd actually look to sign in the window if possible. So yeah, I mean, before we talk about the new manager, Dan, your personal highlight of Beech's time in charge?
I'm probably going to say that little period in December 2020 when we got the sudden thing that fans could go to the Salford game. We beat Salford 2-1. Yeah. Midweek, wasn't it? We went to Bradford, we won. We hammered Stevenage at home. We could have put 8 or 9 on them. And then we also beat Mansfield, didn't we?
Yeah, a tight game. That was a good game.
You know, it was just that couple of weeks when it really clicked. You know, we were a little bit unlucky at Forest Green. Then we had the madness of the Bolton game. And then winning at Walsall, that whole month sort of thing, you know, that was probably as good as it got. You know, there was no shame in losing to Forest Green, and drawing with Bolton, considering they ended up going up, wasn't a bad result, really.
I wouldn't disagree with you at all on your opinion on that one. I think you're absolutely right. That month was the real highlight, and in a weird way, I'd almost want to pick that game against Bolton as being one of the highlights, because
it was a great game of football.
The first half especially, we collapsed a bit second half, and that's when I started to get a bit worried. Obviously, we won the Walsall game after that. Yeah. But the first half, they were so rattled. And it's one of those ones where you think, we could have I think we had a chance to get a 4th, didn't we? Yeah. If we'd got that 4th goal, we would have probably won that 5-0. Yeah. And Everett probably would have been sacked. Yeah. And we would have been saying, this is the team that's going to win the league.
Yeah. I'm just going to take that Salford game ahead of Bolton, I think.
Yeah. It's a close one for me between the Salford and the Stevenage games.
Yeah.
Sorry, between those two. You're going to go Salford, I'll go Stevenage. I think Stevenage is one where we thought, we can batter anyone on our day in this division.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's a bit of review. Beech's time in charge. I'm sure he'll get a coaching job somewhere else easy enough. He's shown he's a pretty decent coach. Whether it's as a manager, I don't know. As a manager, I think he might have to take a drop down to National League level somewhere. It's one of those ones, if the Charlie job came up somewhere, I know he lives that way, and you might fancy it. So there we go. So let's move on to the next bit then, Dan. The new manager, the man to replace him.
Yeah, we're just going to do a bit of an overview here, aren't we? And
Yeah.
we could possibly get another episode out later once it's, we've heard a little bit and the rumours start coming and,
Yeah, definitely. It's a big decision for the board to make this, isn't it? Because it's not an easy one.
It's a huge decision based on where we are and the state of the club.
Where we are, it's still very early days in the season. You've got to be careful, haven't you? We're going to go through some of the types, because I think there's about 4 different types, I think, of manager that you can go for. And with the first one especially, there's a risk you just get someone in just to get yourself out of trouble. And then you get down the line, you think, so, right, let's give him a longer deal. And then you find, actually, he's not really suited to getting you where you want to be. He's good at getting you out of trouble, getting you organised and getting you away from the bottom. It's the Sam Allardyce effect almost, isn't it? Great firefighter, but...
We've sort of narrowed it down to about 4 different types here, haven't we? And when we finished the quick discussion on them, I put a poll out on the message board, Twitter today, and it's quite interesting, the results. Well, I think there's about 48 minutes left of it as we record, but...
Well, first type, it's pretty obvious, isn't it? An experienced head. Someone basically who's been there, done that, old school.
You're talking an Ian Atkins type, aren't you?
Ian Atkins is maybe not quite that direct and like that even. I'm trying to think. Just someone basically he'll come in, do the job.
Sam Allardyce.
Yeah, Sam Allardyce.
A lower league Sam Allardyce.
Yeah. Get the basics right, get them well organised, grind our way out of trouble. The risk with that, though, is that once they've done that, where do you go?
Yeah, because that's their specialism, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's not many experienced heads in that squad either. You've got, I said this to the Bristol Rovers guy the weekend. They had, 8 or 9 players over the age of 30.
Yeah.
We've got Kevin Mello, who's 30, and Alessandro, who's 33?
Yeah.
Beyond that, they're all kids, but not kids, but they're a lot younger. I mean, there's always a risk, you basically, with this one, though, that you go for someone who's failed elsewhere, aren't you? I mean, all managers are going to fail somewhere, aren't they? It's a bit of a weird one, that one. But I think a lot of our fans are keen on this. I'm not as keen on an experienced head. I don't think that's necessarily the right long... You can't just think long-term on this. Sorry, short-term on this, can you? You've got to think long-term as well. And you've got to look at the squad we've got and say, who's going to get the best out of the squad we have? That's as much as the problem, because they're not going to be able to bring too many players in January, are they? You'd think. Next up, this is the one that always... splits opinions, really, doesn't it?
It gets the emotions going, I think, is the right word.
Gets the emotions going in both senses for people who really keen on this idea and people who absolutely hate it and say, why are you only going for those people? You wouldn't go for them if they weren't connected to the club, which gives it away. Basically, a former player or a former coach.
The first ones that immediately come to mind are probably Danny Granger, Peter Murphy, Michael Bridges' name always pops up.
Yeah, so we'll talk about a few names once we've done the 4 things, but they're the 3 obvious ones that are being mentioned out. There's a couple more that I think are a little bit more interesting, actually, in terms of them. That's a choice that might be popular with fans, but it often means going for someone with a lot less experience, doesn't it? I mean, the right name is going to get the backing of the fans, and it probably buys the board a little bit more time. Someone who probably understands the club a bit better than others might.
Yeah.
I'm not one of these people who just poo-poos and say, no, why are we going for that? We wouldn't. I think there's some merit in that.
It can work. It can work with the right one, but it's getting the right one.
It's getting the right one, and I think there's merit in. But the thing is, getting the right one with any manager is an issue.
Well,
it's not just that, is it? Whoever you go for, it's a risk. Doesn't really matter who the manager is.
There's only one team can win the league, and there's only 4 go up, isn't there?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Everyone can't get it right.
An extra category I put in here that maybe other people might not have thought of in this way, because if we're being realistic, we're probably not going to poach a manager from League 1 or League 2. I don't think it's likely. But we could always go to a non-league club, because a smaller non-league club might look at a manager and say, we can't really be demanding a 200 grand fee for you to take our manager offers. They're ambitious. They want to go to a higher level. Yeah. So, look, someone who's been, working their way up as a non-league manager and had some success. I mean, you can argue Granger's sort of done that a little bit, hasn't he?
Yeah. I think you sort of mean sort of National League, maybe National League North level, don't you?
Yeah. Those kind of people who've done a good job there, where we could actually afford to poach them from that club basis. There's a few names potentially there that we'll look at. And the final one, basically similar to Beech himself, a first time or an unexpected name. That's. I mean, this has happened a couple of times now, actually, isn't it? In fact, the last two managers have been people who came out of nowhere. Really, they weren't listed in the odds or anything.
The last three, Sheridan was out of nowhere as well.
Sheridan was out of nowhere, but he was an experienced head in a sense. Wasn't he?
Yeah.
He's very much a been there, done. I mean, would you have Sheridan back now? Probably not.
He'd get them sorted out.
Oh, okay, he wouldn't take any rubbish, would he?
Probably chin half of them in training first.
Chin half of them, and then about 5 weeks later saying, I want to leave now.
Yeah.
I hate being a manager.
Yeah.
No one's putting you through it, John. But yeah, I mean, I would counter on that though with Beech, though, that I know as much as he was a first-time manager, he'd been a coach for 15 years and an assistant coach as well for a lot of that.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a different one to say. It's not like he's someone who's only retired a few years ago and he's just coming into management now. He finished about 2005, was it? Something like that, I think?
Yeah.
I think he was coaching the youth team at Rochdale when we played them, I think, when we
so
got promoted.
With this, you're basically looking at your number twos, aren't you?
Your number twos or someone
under 23s.
Under 23s, someone who's done a bit of coaching here and there, maybe youth level, international youth level and things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, the obvious one you look at recently, Rob Edwards has slotted in seamlessly at Forest Green, hasn't he? Yeah. And by all accounts, Mark Cooper's very old school there. And
speaking of under 23s, David Unsworth's name always seems to appear when our job's up, doesn't it?
Yeah. People with fresh ideas implement something on what's quite a young squad as well. That could be a key thing.
He's at Everton, isn't he?
He is, yeah. To be fair, he's not a name I put down here, but he's one. You're right, I completely forgot about him. But he's one who I'm sure he applied when Presley got the job, I think?
Possibly,
he definitely applied in one of the last two, I think, and I definitely think he got to interview stage. I'd heard he was very impressive, but they just decided not to go for him. And you do wonder if he might go in for it again, possibly, if he fancies the chance. And so
they're the four types.
Yes.
Obviously, we didn't put the non-league option. Which do you think has walked the vote?
I think the experienced one's probably gone for it.
76%.
I think people. My problem with that is I think too many of our fans are panicking. They're panicking and saying we need to get someone to get us out of trouble. Your problem is then, come 5 or 6 months' time, you're out of trouble, and then you go on a bad run of form. So you have to sack them off again anyway to find someone else. And I think you've got to be more forward thinking as a club than doing that. For my
fan favourite got 13 and up and coming's on 11, and there's about 40 odd minutes left on that. So it's not really going to change much.
No, it's not. I mean, when you look at that, you think to yourself, in terms of other clubs in our division, how many of them, when they go for the experienced head, to try and get them out of trouble and everything, how often does it actually work? I'm not convinced it actually works as often as you think. I mean, that'd be funny when Newport were down at the bottom. What did they do? When they sacked off Wesley, I think it was, when they were struggling in the bottom of League Two. They went for an upcoming coach. They went for their former player, Mike Flynn.
Yeah.
His first management job, and look at the job he did over the last few years. I mean, I've listed the names here, Dan. Let's just talk through a few of them. We're not going to go into too much detail because me and Mike might do that on the Tranmere preview episode. I mean, you mentioned that. I mean, the former player ones there. I mean, they're obvious. I mean, I've listed five former players.
Yeah.
So we'll touch on Danny Granger in a sec because I think he's one we can go to a little bit more depth on. Michael Bridges, I think we should poo-poo that one now. I'm not being harsh. He's not been a coach at any level in England yet, and it'd be a hell of a lot to ask him to uproot his family over here for what is, it's a tough job to get us away from the bottom at the moment. I just don't think that one would work. I think
on the flip side, it would get the fans on side and it would bring crowds back.
It would,
and you just never know. It could work.
It could, but is that a short-term boost? What happens if he comes over and actually turns out he's no good? People are like, why don't you go for an experienced head? That's the problem with that one. Peter Murphy, I mean, I've not watched him at his team at Annan. I know you and Matt, who obviously helps run the Message Board with us, have both been to watch Annan a bit, and by all accounts, he's doing an alright job there, isn't he?
Yeah, does alright.
It's tough though for Annan, isn't it? Because they're up against some full-time clubs at that level, aren't they?
Scottish League 2 isn't the prettiest of leagues, to be polite.
No.
It's very industrial. But he's done all right there. He's steady away.
And the problem is for them as well is they're up against, your Cove Rangers and your Edinburgh Cities and whatnot.
Kelty Hearts.
The teams that are basically, some of them are full-time, aren't they?
Yeah.
And that's where he has the big challenge there. So
Yeah.
I don't think he's a ridiculous suggestion. He's done his few years there now, and like I said, he'll get the club. He will get the club. He lives locally. It's not going to be an issue for him. I don't want to be one of them to say we're just going for him because he's locally, but it helps. Zico Arenalde, I just don't think he'd be interested. He's coaching at a higher level. I don't think he's really going to.
Yeah.
He's only linked because he's a former player. I think he'd probably look and think that's not worth the hassle for me. I'll go where was it? Kiko Sancho Flores. He was assistant to it.
Yeah.
Thing. He'll just go wherever he goes next. He was assistant to Valencia till recently. Yeah. Okay. The final two. So obviously we'll touch Danny Granger in a minute. In fact, let's do Danny Granger now because we'll do the next one in a sec. But Danny Granger, I don't think this is a ridiculous suggestion at all. He's clearly going to want the job someday. He's done his bit of Workington. I know people will say, oh, he had a very good squad at Workington for that level. It's not easy for Workington at that level, because unlike, your clubs in Manchester, Merseyside and Yorkshire and Lancashire, they don't have many clubs around that they can pick off players from, do they?
Yeah.
Workington basically rely on our cast-offs, a few local players, and occasionally picking up one or two from, they were picking up players from Morecambe in the past, but I think Lancaster have started to pick a few more of them again. So it's not as stupid as it sounds, And he's gone and done his bit up in Scotland now as assistant manager. I know he's only been there a few months, but I wouldn't. You know what? I think it's one. I think it'd probably get fans on side as much as Bridges would. I mean, Bridges is a bit more glamorous, but I think fans would be just as excited if Granger got the job. I think they'd be like, yeah, he's actually done a bit of management. He'll have a good knowledge of the Scottish leagues now. He'll built up a bit of knowledge there. He might know of some players in non-leagues who can come up as well and do a bit. And he gets the club. And he won't take any crap from those players either. You can guarantee that. Mm. Would you be against it? Or
he'd slot in well with Gav Skelton as well, obviously, wouldn't he?
Well, a lot of people say, you need to bomb Gav Skelton out. I mean, you wait and see what the manager wants. The manager might say, actually, I'm happy to stick work with Gav Skelton.
I like having Gav there because he's local and he gets it.
Yeah, even if he's just first team coach or something like that.
Yeah.
First team coach and sort of almost development coach, linking the players. Because we're clearly we're almost working towards having an under 23 setup, aren't we? Here, similar to what your clubs like Colchester and Scunthorpe have at this level. That seems to be the way we're edging over a slow, gradual way work towards it, aren't we? But we seem to be working towards that, and maybe that would be a way you could work. The final one of these sort of former player ones that I've got here, and I think this is a really interesting one. Paul Thirlwell. I mean, he's done his bit now, hasn't he? He's gone off to Harrogate. He started out, I think, coaching the youth team there, didn't he? I think, and as a player coach, he's worked his way up to be first team coach, and now he's assistant manager. He's helped them get them up the league. I know they've had a bit of money behind them, but they haven't had Salford levels of money, have they? When they're in,
I think the one thing I would put against this is him and what's the Harrogate manager called?
Simon Weaver.
They're very settled, more than most management teams.
Yeah, I mean,
I know Weaver's dad owns the club and that, but
also Thirlwell lives down their way. I think he lives at Harrogate or Wetherby or something like that. So it'd be a bit of a difficult one for him to move because then he'd be a bit more away from home.
And
but if he's ambitious,
because they're playing well as well.
Yeah, and if he's ambitious though, he might fancy it. And there's a documentary about Harrogate that was on BT Sport. I don't know if you saw that, Dan.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, it's good.
It's really good, and I think Thirlwell comes across very well in that. From what I watched, he seems to do a lot of the coaching there, doesn't he? He seems to be very much focusing on that, whereas Weaver's almost like an old school manager, isn't he? He's very much the.
But then that brings up the question: is he more of a Chris Beech and a coach and a manager?
Maybe, but he might have ambitions to step up to that. I'm sure other people have done that. I think Weaver started out as a coach there, didn't he? And then I think he's got the management job eventually. So, yeah, it's. I think of the former player ones, they're the two that look the obvious ones to put forward potentially.
Yeah.
Maybe Clinton Hill as well, but he's gone for the coaching job at Hartlepool now, hasn't he? So whether he'd actually be interested in
bad timing.
It is, isn't it? It's typical that. And I think if you were going to look at actually to poach managers at our level, Challoner at Hartlepool wouldn't have been a bad shout, but he signed a new deal, didn't he, quite recently? So there you go. Some of the others, I mean, looking at managers who've left jobs in recent years, I mean, John McGreal's quite high on the betting, but I think that's more because he left Swindon fairly recently, isn't it? I think
it's usual names on the list, isn't it?
Tisdale again is similar because he's been a manager at this level fairly recently. And I mean, what I'd say is, McGreal, yes, he's from Liverpool originally, but he's lived down south for about a decade now, hasn't he? So whether he'd want to uproot all the way up to Cumbria, I'm not convinced. Tisdale again, he's never really moved away from the south, has he? And he's fairly settled down there.
I'm just flicking through all the names that are up on the Bet Victor were the first to go with prices, and I mean it's just the usuals.
Yeah, they have a standard template. I would never read too much into it, but I mean these are some names that probably will be coming. Mike Flynn, again, I don't think he'd move this far north. I think he's very settled in South Wales. I think he's probably looking at, as I said before, he's looking at a club down in the southwest or the Midlands maybe. Is what he'll look at and think.
He's maybe thinking Bristol Rovers could still go tits up or something.
Could do. Might even look at Walsall and see, that's only up the road. And Matty Taylor's struggling a little bit there. So some other names. I know a lot of people laugh at this one, but Sol Campbell, I'm sure he'll put his name in the ring. And he's... You know what? He's had an okay record as a manager. It's not the most ridiculous suggestion you'll ever hear, but I'm not convinced he'll get it. Should we just appoint Lee Clark and get it over and done with? It's been waiting to happen for years. Give him the job, let him have a go. See how it goes. Gary Caldwell.
There's worse people.
Yeah, he was at Partick Thistle last, wasn't he? I think he had a tough sort of time there, I remember. I think Wigan's the only club where he's actually done any well as a manager when you look at it. I think his time at Chesterfield was a disaster, so I do wonder. I think he did apply for the job last time as well, possibly, actually, I seem to remember.
He's still young as well, he's only 39.
I mean, Sam Ricketts left Shrewsbury last season. I know from my mate Dale, who supports Shrewsbury, he did not do a good job there, though, so... I mean, he did a good job. I think he did an okay job at Wrexham before that, though. But, I mean... A few people have mentioned Keith Hill. I don't think Keith Hill will go for it. I don't think he'd be too loyal to his mate, Chris Beech. And to be honest, he's not been that well thought of in his last two jobs, has he, at Tranmere and Bolton? Yeah. I know he got Tranmere to playoffs last season, but they weren't in great form going into them, and they got rid of him, didn't they? And a few sort of former players who've showed interest in management jobs before and maybe potentially could be ones to look at. Nicky Butt obviously left the academy role at Man United fairly recently, didn't he? The only issue with him is obviously he part-owns Salford City, so that'd be a bit awkward, wouldn't it? I guess he'd have to give up his shares to potentially take on the job. Robbie Fowler, done a bit of coaching in Australia, hasn't he? And he did a bit in India. I think he's one who's applied for jobs in the past. And I think Craig Bellamy's quite well thought of as a coach, isn't he, I think?
Has something not just happened with Bellamy in the last couple of weeks?
Possibly, I don't know. I mean, I saw him listed in one of the betting odds.
I'm sure he's just listed his... I'm sure he's just left somewhere.
Possibly, then, maybe.
Or he's got something happening, which means he's taking a step back.
I think, actually, you know what? I think that rings a bell now.
Anderlecht under-21s he was at.
Well, I mean, he might be one of those ones, though, because he's abroad.
Yeah.
He's just not settled abroad and he wants to come home, potentially. But, I mean, he'd certainly take no rubbish in the dressing room, it's fair to say.
With golf clubs.
Yeah. And one name I didn't actually put on the list here, Dan, but he's one that really interests me. Pete Wild at Halifax.
Mental health issues, that's what it was with Craig Bellamy. So he's probably having a bit of a chill out type thing.
Yeah, possibly.
Hopefully he's all right.
But yeah, Pete Wild at Halifax. He's one that really interests me because he came in Oldham as sort of, he was a youth coach and a fan, wasn't he, effectively, the club? And he did a good job there. Obviously, they're a basket case, and like any manager, he left them. But he's done all right at Halifax, hasn't he? He got them promoted, didn't he? And done a decent job there.
My one from non-league, I'm going to say Mike Williamson at Gateshead. Former centre-back. I think he's still officially player-manager, but he doesn't play much.
Bring Kedwin Scott back over with him.
Yeah.
Maybe.
He scored again yesterday.
Yeah, and I mean, the lad who's in charge at Dagenham's doing a pretty good job there, isn't he? But
why isn't Roy Keane on the list?
Hey, well, his daughter went to college up here, didn't she? In Carlisle, seems to remember. You might. And it's an interesting long list. I would not be 100% amazed if it's someone that comes out of nowhere again, because we've seen that so many times.
Put it this way, the applications will already be in at Carlisle United.
Yeah. What I would say is, though, the standard of applicant we get could be better, because any manager who does a bit... My mate Ian actually mentioned this to me. I should give him credit. And I think it was his brother mentioned to him, and he's absolutely bang on. Any manager worth their salt who does their due diligence will take one look and go, there's a club where there's unresolved ownership issues and investment issues there that sort of pottering along, not really doing much. You've got a director of football who's just basically a patsy sitting there for the person who owes money to the club. You've had 2 managers come in fact, 3 managers argue who've not got anywhere really near the playoffs in the last few years. I know there's always going to be managers interested, but any manager worth his look might go, not really worth the hassle, that one for me.
Yeah.
That's what worries me. I think if the ownership thing just got sorted, and it just needs to, you might find that managers suddenly go, actually, that's an interesting proposition there now. Even if they're not going to say, oh, we're not going to throw money in it, but we're going to be stable now. I just think that again is going to hold us back a little bit.
Let's see what rumours start coming out through the week.
Yeah, that's the key thing. The names will start getting thrown out all over the shop, won't they? We've had them in the past. Was it Frank Burrows got mentioned a few years ago, which was a mental one that came out of nowhere?
Glenn Roeder got backed heavily, and I don't think he was ever even in for it.
No, it's one of those ones, isn't it? You never read too much into the bookies odds because they fluctuate quite a lot. I know from last time there was a couple of times where I got told, oh, someone's in for it because the odds are high. I said, well, did you put some money on them? Yeah. It's like, that's why the odds have got high, because people keep putting
low. You mean low?
Got low. Sorry, low. Sorry, other way around. But yeah, basically, it's essentially as soon as you have 3 or 4 people putting 20 quid on one manager, it's not worth the risk for the bookies, is it? Their liabilities too high.
I still can't. Well, when Keith Curl was at Shrewsbury the night before, and he was still 20-1. And we filled our boots.
Well, we got 33-1, both of us, didn't we? I think you get 66 on him, actually.
No, I got 33, 20s, and just fill your boots.
Yeah, well, I seem to remember Gary Waddock actually there was 2 people down for the job, wasn't it? I think it was Curl and Waddock, and Waddock was still 66-1, I think, at that point, wasn't he? So either way, you were going to make a fortune, weren't you? But yeah, there you go. So that's it, Dan. That's it's never a nice thing when a manager loses his job, and he seems a fairly decent bloke, and wish him all the best, and hope things work out for him in the future.
Yeah, I think he'll end up as a number 2 with Keith Hill somewhere eventually.
Possibly, yeah, if he can't get himself his own management job. But yeah, it's there's a big opportunity for someone there. I think I really do think there is. Yeah. It's just what we just need to sort out the.
And like we say, I mean, the process will probably take a couple of weeks. We'll get the applications this week.
Yeah.
Then you do your shortlist, you do your initial interviews, maybe half a dozen.
Yeah.
Then they'll cut it to 2 or 3. So we'll probably be able to have another little episode regarding what's happening with it, depending how long it takes.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when you look at that, we've got how many games we've got in the next few weeks? Something like definitely got a Tuesday night game, haven't we? So
yeah, we've got Newport, we've got Tranmere, Newport, and Oldham next 3 games: Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday.
So you wonder if it might be by the end of the month, possibly after that Oldham game, maybe just before it.
We'll have FA Cup soon as well, won't we?
Yes, we'll have that. Is it next weekend if the next round is? I think it is.
I think so. Yeah.
Usually 3 weeks before the first round date, anyway. Well, that's it, Dan.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just looking. We've got Tranmere, Newport, Oldham, and then we have the Northampton away on the Saturday.
Yes, that's
then the FA Cup, then Barrow at home. So
the first league game could be Barrow.
Timing could be key here, couldn't it?
Yeah, I think we need to get someone in.
The last thing you want is to appoint a new manager after, say, Northampton, have a tricky FA Cup game away to, a Stockport or someone, and
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's it then, Dan. It's lasted a little bit longer than we thought it would, actually.
Yeah, we thought we were going to do about half an hour, didn't we? We've probably done nearly an hour.
We have indeed. We need to work on that, I think.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for listening. We'll be back later in the week to do a normal episode with me and Mike covering that one as usual. You can find us at all the usual places: Acast, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. We've got a little thing coming soon. Actually, it's a little support thing where you can just make a little donation to us. We're not asking for any money. We're not demanding. We're happy to keep doing as we are. But it really would help with some of our running costs, wouldn't it, Dan? I think if you can chuck us a couple of quid our way, we'll stick that up on the social medias sometime this week. But yeah, thanks everyone for listening. Hopefully good times are coming again. Thanks everyone, and up the Blues.
Up the Blues.